takeoffs and landings. They last only a few minutes, but they're the most dangerous parts of every flight. In those moments, pilots face unpredictable weather, sudden mechanical failures, and split-second decisions that determine whether a flight ends in triumph or in disaster. Today, we'll uncover real stories of failed takeoffs and landings, from planes that couldn't lift off the runway to aircraft that skidded into chaos during a storm. These are not just dramatic tales. They're powerful reminders of how fragile safety can be in the skies. Every flight begins with the roar of engines, the surge of acceleration, and the expectation that the aircraft will leave the ground smoothly. But what happens when that moment never comes? One of the most terrifying scenarios in aviation is a failed takeoff, when the plane builds speed but refuses to lift. A classic example occurred with a large passenger jet on a humid summer day. The aircraft was heavy, fully loaded with fuel, luggage, and passengers, and the conditions were far from ideal. High temperatures and humidity reduce air density, meaning the wings generate less lift and the engines produce less thrust. Pilots call this hot and high conditions, and it can be a silent enemy during departure. As the aircraft raced down the runway, the captain pulled back on the yoke at the calculated speed, but instead of climbing into the sky, the jet barely lifted its nose. For a chilling moment, it seemed glued to the ground. The engines howled, the runway markers rushed past, and the end of the asphalt loomed dangerously close. Passengers later described the cabin filling with an eerie silence, broken only by the violent rattling of the plane as it struggled to rise. The reason was eventually traced to weight miscalculations. Airlines rely on precise numbers for fuel, cargo, and passenger weight, and even small errors can tip the balance. In this case, the crew had underestimated the total load, meaning the aircraft required more runway than available. The captain made a split-second decision. Instead of forcing the jet into the air, which could have led to a deadly stall, he slammed on the brakes and engaged reverse thrust. Tires screeched, smoke poured from the landing gear, and the aircraft skidded violently before coming to a halt just meters from the runway's end. No one was hurt, but the incident served as a sobering lesson. Aviation safety doesn't just rely on high-tech systems or experienced pilots. It depends on mathematics. Every kilogram, every degree of temperature, every meter of runway must be accounted for. A single oversight can transform a routine departure into a near disaster. This story is a chilling reminder that in aviation, even takeoff, the moment most passengers barely notice, demands absolute precision. One of the most dramatic examples took place on a stormy evening at a busy international airport. Winds gusted violently across the runway, rain pounded the windshield, and visibility was reduced to a blur of flashing lights. The crew, experienced but exhausted after a long-haul flight, lined up for approach. Passengers later recalled seeing lightning streak across the sky as the aircraft descended through thick, turbulent clouds. As the plane touched down, what should have been a smooth flare, that graceful moment when the pilot eases the nose up, turned into a violent impact. The jet slammed onto the runway with a force that jolted everyone in their seats. Overhead, bins popped open, luggage fell onto passengers, and the shockwave echoed through the fuselage like a thunderclap. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. The landing gear, designed to absorb enormous amounts of energy, took the brunt of the blow. One tire burst instantly, sending sparks flying as the rim scraped the asphalt. The aircraft lurched sideways, fighting to stay centered, while pilots worked frantically to keep it under control. Emergency vehicles were already racing toward the runway, as the jet finally slowed to a stop, crippled but upright. Investigators later determined that wind shear, a sudden change in wind speed and direction near the ground, had robbed the aircraft of lift just seconds before touchdown. The pilots had little warning and almost no time to react. The heavy descent rate combined with the unexpected gusts made a soft landing impossible. Though the aircraft sustained significant damage, every passenger walked away. For aviation experts, the incident highlighted both the dangers of weather and the resilience of modern aircraft. Landing gear systems are engineered to survive immense stress, and crews train extensively for crosswinds, turbulence, and wind shear. Still, this case showed how quickly nature can push even the most advanced technology and skilled pilots to the edge. For passengers, it was a landing they would never forget. A reminder that when the runway is slick, the winds howl, and the storm closes in, those final seconds before touchdown are among the most dangerous in aviation.
Sometimes, the most frightening part of a flight doesn't happen in the air, but in those tense moments after touchdown. A runway overrun, when an aircraft cannot stop in time and slides off the pavement, is one of the most dangerous landing scenarios. One memorable case unfolded on a winter night at a northern airport. Snow was falling heavily, the runway was slick with ice, and visibility was limited to a few hundred meters. The arriving jet had already diverted once because of the weather, but with fuel running low, the crew had no choice but to attempt another landing. The approach was stable, and the touchdown seemed normal at first. But the moment the wheels hit the ground, the aircraft's brakes were nearly useless. Anti-skid systems engaged, but with so little friction, the tires simply slid across the icy surface. The captain deployed thrust reversers, panels that redirect engine power forward to slow the jet, but the slippery conditions made them less effective. The runway lights raced past, and the end of the pavement drew closer with every second. Passengers felt the aircraft shudder as the pilots fought to keep it centered. Some reported seeing fire trucks lined up near the perimeter fence, their red lights glowing through the blizzard. With terrifying inevitability, the plane skidded off the end of the runway, plowing through the snow and finally stopping in a frozen field. The cabin filled with screams, then silence, as everyone realized they were still alive. Miraculously, no one was seriously injured, though the jet's landing gear and engines suffered major damage from the snow and debris. The investigation later revealed that the runway had not been adequately cleared of ice, and braking conditions were far worse than reported to the pilots. It was a chilling reminder that even when flight crews do everything correctly, external factors can tip the balance. Runway excursions remain one of the most common types of aviation accidents worldwide. Unlike mid-air incidents, these don't often make headlines unless there are fatalities, but they highlight the razor-thin margin of safety in aviation.
From failed takeoffs to violent landings, from sliding off icy runways to birds crippling engines, every story we've explored today shares a single truth. Aviation is unforgiving. The margin for error is razor-thin, and yet, time and again, skilled pilots, advanced engineering, and rigorous training turn near disasters into survivable events. For passengers, these incidents are terrifying, but they also highlight why aviation is still considered the safest form of travel. Each failure is investigated, each weakness corrected, and each lesson learned becomes part of the training that protects future flights. What looks like chaos from the cabin window is often the result of crews making split-second decisions that save hundreds of lives. The next time you board a plane, remember that safety is built on stories like these, stories of challenges faced and overcome. If you found this journey into aviation's most dangerous moments eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you want us to cover more real incidents, and share this video with a friend who's curious about what really happens behind the cockpit doors. Because in aviation, every story is a lesson, and every lesson saves lives.